came back into the market in a very big way.
What we know now is Wall Street can bring down Main Street.
People are seeing this, and those memories of fear are coming back.
When you have a 401k or a 403b, those kinds of accounts, they are incredibly susceptible to downturns.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 900 points. More than 900 points.
There are questions about how to best save for retirement.
Part of the problem is confusion.
Time keeps on slipping into the future.
The first rule in investment is don't lose. And the second rule in investment is don't forget the first rule. And that's all the rules there are.
When the market goes up, you go up. When the market goes down, you don't go down. Save Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
Welcome to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Brad is a retirement and income specialist, primarily serving Springfield, but he's sought after nationally for his expertise in helping people secure their retirements. Mr. Pistole is a licensed life insurance professional in the states of Missouri, Arkansas, and Kansas, and he specializes in working with people who are near retirement and those who have already retired with wealth management, income planning, and asset protection strategies.
Save Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
And now, here to talk with you about securing your retirement, your host, Brad Pistole.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on Safe Money Radio. You might be listening on the radio, you might be listening to the podcast, and this might be your first time ever listening, and you might have been listening for the past 15 years. We are glad you're with us today. Today is a very, very special show, unlike any show I've ever done before, because today I'm going to be honoring and talking about my father, Joe Pistole, who passed away 2 years ago, and today, October the 2nd, 2024, would have been his 80th birthday. My father served 50 plus years in the financial services industry, and so I have a lot of stories that I want to share today, a lot of things that involve his insights and things that he was passionate about, that he wanted to share with other people so that they could learn from his mistakes and his experiences and things he had been through. And I'm going to share those things with you today. So just know this. I write about my father's story in my best-selling book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And you can call in anytime throughout the show, whether it's today or on into the future. You can always call. I'm more than happy to give you a copy of this best-selling book absolutely free. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that what I share with you today will impact you, it will change your life, and it will change your family's life for many generations to come. You see, my father, Joe Pistole, was a very, very special man. He impacted the lives of many people in the churches in which he served, in the businesses in which he worked. In my business, he was a part of our team here at Trinity Insurance and Financial Services. And he spent his career working for Blue Cross and Blue Shield, for Merrill Lynch, and then for Trinity, for us. And I want to share a lot of different things that happened in his life, but I want to start with a story. Because you see, today, a client of mine came in to pick up 2 annuities of theirs, and they had no idea what today represented. And when he came in, he was dressed in his uniform because he serves at the Missouri Veterans Cemetery with the Honor Guard, and he helps perform their funerals and their services in honor of our military. And I'm so thankful for our veterans who have served this country. My father was a veteran. Both my grandfathers were veterans. We thank you so much for your service to this country. And when he walked in today to meet with me and he had his uniform on, he had a look on his face and he said, "You know, Brad," he said, "today's services were really tough. It really took it out of me." And I said, "Hey, I just want to thank you for what you do to serve other people. And I know you have no idea, but today is a very special day for me. Today would have been my father's 80th birthday. We lost him 2 years ago." And so he said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And we got to talking and sharing. And, you know, the Missouri Veterans Cemetery is a very special place to me because for 8 years, I lived directly across the road from it. I lived in a big greenhouse with black gates that, if what I call the S-curve as you're heading down into the Missouri Veterans Cemetery, off of Evans Road, and my front porch literally looks over into the white gates into the Veteran Cemetery. I walked my dog Patch there every single day, rain or shine. We walked all throughout the trails. We walked all around the graves. I've been all over that cemetery for the last 8 years, and I've read the headstones. I've read stories. It is a very, very special place. Now, of course, for many years living there with my backyard being 65 highway, I literally could walk out and sit on the cliff above 65 and watch all the interchanges down to the James River Expressway. And I didn't publicize where I live because I have a very public job. People know me from all over the world. I'm licensed in 18 different states, and I really didn't want everyone knowing where I lived. I live a pretty quiet life away from work, but I did live right there by the Missouri Veteran Cemetery, and I witnessed some very, very beautiful things, especially around Memorial Day. I always knew every year better than anyone else because that's my front yard. I would watch them get all the poles and the flags ready. I would see all the places they would weed eat to get the poles ready to go in for Memorial Day weekend. And if you've ever been to the Missouri Veteran Cemetery on that weekend, you see all the flags that are flying all over the park. And that was my front yard. So I know exactly what he's talking about. I watched a lot of their services from the front yard. I would hear the bagpipes playing. I would hear their music. I would hear part of their ceremonies. And it's an emotional thing to go through the loss of someone that you know and even someone you don't know, especially when they're a veteran and they've served our country. And like I said before, my father was a veteran who served this country. So I just want to start today by saying thank you to my dad. Thank you for your service to this country. Thank you to my grandfathers for your service to this country. Thank you to the gentleman who is here today who helps honor them in their passing and in their memorial services. Thank you to all of you who serve our country. It is your sacrifice that helps us live in freedom every single day. So today, as we get started, I want you to stay with us as we're going to be sharing some very special tips, tricks, trades, thoughts about financial services and planning from someone who has passed on, for someone who has his eternal reward right now, but who spent 50 plus years in this industry. And I'm going to share with you some very personal things that changed my life, and they can help change yours. Our phone number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. You can call us anytime. Ask for a free financial consultation. Ask for a free copy of my book, Bulletproof, the Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan, that was written because of stories like my father's story, which is told in this book. Our number is 866-780-7233, and you can call us anytime. So friends, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Today, I'm going to be talking about my father, Joe Pistole. Many of you knew because he helped serve in our business here for many years, more than a decade, after retiring as an assistant vice president at Merrill Lynch. His home office was in Fort Smith, Arkansas. He worked in our branch there. We've got clients all over Arkansas, but he also came up here and he had group 401ks in the Springfield area. He had clients up here. And, you know, my father was a CRPC and a CLU. You may think, well, what does that mean? Well, he was a chartered retirement planning counselor, and he was a chartered life underwriter. Now, the CLU designation comes from the American College of Financial Services, and that really gives you specialization in life insurance and risk management. So he did retirement planning counseling. He was an IAR, an investment advisor representative, and he helped a lot of our clients and clients all over Arkansas and Missouri. But here's the thing. The really interesting thing about my father, he was okay with risk. Risk didn't bother him at all. Even until he was 63 years old, he was always all in the market, 100% in. And he didn't understand why you should ever be any other way. Now, keep in mind, with his Merrill Lynch background, there was no such thing as a safety product. There was no such thing as an annuity. There was no such thing as trying to plan for the what-ifs of the market. Everything that he was ever trained in his financial services career was about putting yourself into the naked market and swinging for the fences and just knowing that historically it always comes back, right? Have you ever heard anything like this? Oh, don't worry about it. You haven't really lost any money. That's just a paper loss, right? Well, it's interesting. Here's what happened. When my father was 56 years old, 2001 happened when he was 56 years old. And his money was invested in his 401k at Merrill Lynch. And what happened? Well, he lost about 50% of that account. And at 56, the mentality of many advisors and financial professionals is, oh, don't worry about it. You still got time for it to come back. And guess what? It did come back. It came back really well from 2001 to 2007. And then guess what happened again? Something way worse than 2001. The financial crisis of 2008 happened, and my father still had 100% of his future retirement money built up in a Merrill Lynch 401k. And what happened to him a second time in 7 years? He lost about 50% of his money. There's only one problem with this. Well, there's more than one problem, but one big glaring problem when it comes to the type of people you hear me interview on this show, the retirement planning experts, people with PhD behind their name, people like Dr. Michael Finke, Dr. David Babel, Dr. Wade Fowle, Dr. David Blanchett, Dr. Alex Margia, world-renowned economist, Tom Hegna, CPA and America's IRA expert, Ed Slott, Heather Schreiber. I can just go on and on and on. People that we have quoted, we've interviewed, we've talked about. They all understand this, that risk changes in retirement and risk changes in the years prior to your retirement. And the experts will say it needs to start changing about 5 years prior to your retirement. Well, if you were listening to this segment earlier, if you didn't miss it, remember Dad was 56 when 01 happened. And when 08 happened, guess what? He's now 7 years older. Who's good at math? What's 56 plus 7? See, now Dad's 63. And his plan was, of course, to retire at age 65. But you cannot retire during a downward market when it's in a downward spiral if your money is unprotected. And so I often said this. When Dad was alive, I would include him in phone calls. If he was here in person, I would include him in a meeting. I would say, let me introduce you to a man who can show you how to take $1 million and turn it into $400,000. And he is a financial professional of 50 plus years. That man is sitting right there. That man is on this phone call. That man is someone I love very much. It's my father, Joe Pistole. Well, you might be thinking, well, why would I want to listen to anyone who had $1 million in their account? And I don't want it to go to 400,000. I want the million to go to 2.4. Exactly. So did my father. You see, he was a 401k millionaire before 01 happened. And then 01 happened and he never recovered from it. And then 08 happened and he never recovered from that. His $1 million account dropped to about 600, went back up to about 800, then dropped back down to about 400. And there was one major problem. He's now 7 years older. He's now age 63, staring retirement right in the face. And he's still in the middle of the financial crisis. And who knows what's coming. And he never paid his house off. Why did my father never pay his house off? Well, why would he need to? He was a 401k millionaire, friends. He had 7 figures in his Merrill Lynch 401k, so he never worried about paying that note off. The house that they bought when I was in the 8th grade, which my mother still lives there to this day, he still had a $220,000 balance on that home when his 401k had dropped from $1 million down to $400,000. That's when my father's world changed. That's when the blinders came off. That's when he started thinking about things that he said he would never sell, these annuities. He said he would never own them. It was a bad word. It was a 4-letter word. But life happened to my dad. And it's like Warren Buffett has said, you realize that who is swimming without trunks on when the tide goes out, right? When the tide's swimming high, everybody's protected. But when the tide goes out from under you, you find out who didn't have any protection on, who didn't have their shorts on. Dad found out. After 01 and 08, there was no protection in his portfolio. And even though he was a CRPC, a chartered retirement planning counselor, and he was a chartered life underwriter who specializes in risk management, he failed to do the one thing for himself that he encouraged other people to do. He had no protection against the risks of the market. What would happen if a downward spiral took place? And so today we're going to continue talking about how my father's life changed, what he did after that second market crash in 2008, about him retiring from Merrill Lynch, coming to work from us, about how he ended up owning multiple annuities, which are now owned by my mother, and she still receives her guaranteed lifetime income from those accounts. We're going to talk about life insurance. We're going to talk about all kinds of things, because today we're focused on legacy planning as we honor my father, Joe Pistole, who was born on October the 2nd, 1944, who would have been 80 years old today. So thank you, Dad. Thank you for joining us on the show today. All of you who are listening, stay with us and know this: you can always call us at any time at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. I tell my dad's story in my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan. And remember, America's IRA expert Ed Slott, a CPA from New York, wrote the foreword for the book. This is the cover of my book and what it says. Like a doctor, Brad Pistole gives it to you straight. You have a tax tumor in your retirement account that needs to be removed stat. Lucky for you, Brad is a specialist, and he shows you exactly how to do that. Thanks, Dr. Brad. That's from America's IRA expert, Ed Slott. Friends, call us anytime. Request our free information. We'll be happy to send it to you. Our number is 866-780-7233. Friends, we're so grateful for you joining us on the show today. We're talking about true legacy planning. And for a lot of people, they think, oh, well, that's got to be life insurance, and that's got to be financial products, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. But we're going to be talking about a lot more than that. You see, my father served our country as a Army vet. He also served in the financial services industry more than 50 years. He was an elder and a deacon in his church. He worked with the Lions Club. My father was a very service-oriented person, and I honor him today. He would have been 80 years old today, and we're looking at his life and things that he learned and things that he shared and passed on with other people to keep them from making the same mistakes that he made. Because here's the thing. You see, my father was a genius. Now, I'll be the first to say that gene did not get passed on to me. I have some gifts, and I'm super proud of myself, and I'm a confident person. But my father never made a B, ever. Elementary, junior high, high school, or college. He was valedictorian all the way through. He was head of the ROTC. The guy could pass any exam. He knew the answer to every question. He knew the good book inside and out. He taught Bible class for 50 years. The guy was just a genius. But where was the chink in his armor? Where someone fooled him into believing many years ago that when it came to financial planning, you should just throw all your money at the stock market and just let it do its thing. You didn't need protection. You didn't need some of the things he sold, like life insurance. He was a charter life underwriter. He sold tons and tons and tons of life insurance when he worked for Blue Cross and Blue Shield for 28 years. But guess what? My dad found himself without any life insurance in his late 60s. It was his son who finally got his attention regarding annuities and life insurance and protection, putting the right type of things in place to protect your family. When it was me talking to him saying, Dad, you're not doing the things that you're telling other people to do, that changed his life. And so my father, in his late 60s, stopped chewing tobacco. He dipped every day of his life. He was a smoker back in the Army days. He would always, I knew when we played golf, he was going to reach in that golf bag and get his skull banded out and put it in his lip, and he was going to chew tobacco, right? He was going to spit everywhere we went while we were playing golf. And I finally said, Dad, your premiums are going to be about double if you keep doing that. And there's this thing called cancer, and there's these things called health issues that you're going to have if you don't stop. And it got his attention. He literally saw the premiums for his life insurance policies, what they would be. And he said, yeah, I've got to quit. So literally financial planning helped change my dad's life, because in his mid-60s, he stopped. No tobacco products. He actually received a preferred plus non-tobacco product almost near the age of 70 on policies he took out. And thank God he did, because he had no idea what was coming on down the road just a few years later. And that life insurance helped protect my mother and her financial future. And I also took out life insurance policies on my father. I was the owner and the payer. I talk about this in my book. And I was able to pay for my father's funeral because of those life insurance policies. It's going to be legacy planning for my family because of those life insurance policies. And it was about half the premium because he stopped doing that. So if you're listening right now, that is one note to yourself. It's not going to benefit you at all to keep smoking that cigarette, to keep dipping that dip. You need to get rid of it. Your life insurance premiums are going to be better. Your health's going to be better. And you're going to pass on a lot more money to your family in your estate plan. So just do what Nancy Reagan said. Just say no. Just quit. Quit today, okay? Now, in case you can't tell, today's show's not scripted. I'm talking about very personal things. I'm talking about my father, his life in the financial services industry. And before the break, we were talking about how he went through 2 major market crashes in his career while he was a chartered retirement planning counselor for Merrill Lynch. He went through an 01 crash. He went through an 08 crash. His 401k dropped 50% on 2 different occasions when he was 56 and 63. And those were the things that shook him up and made him say, I can't go through this again. In 2008, right after he went through this crash a second time when he was 63 years old, I was going through a major life change. I retired from 17 years of full-time ministry. I had very little money to my name, but I did have a 403B at the church that my father helped set up for all the pastors because they relied on him, the Merrill Lynch counselor, to come in and help set up the pastors and the staff. And I asked my dad a question. I said, Dad, I noticed that I keep contributing to this 403B thing. I had no clue what it was, but said, I'm putting in like $250 a month, and at the end of the month, I have less money in there than I did at the beginning. And I'm not very good at math, or I'm not very good with financial stuff, but that seems like it's a problem. Like I don't want to keep losing my money. And we had the age-old discussion where he said, oh, you just got to forget about it. You're a young man, and it's going to come back, and you're buying things on sale, and there's dollar cost averaging, and all this fancy stuff that he talked about. And I knew nothing about any of it back in 2008. But I did know this. I knew that I was in the middle of a life change. I went and studied, and I took all my exams, and I got my life and health licenses, my P&C licenses. I started learning about protection for retirement accounts. I started learning about annuities, and a word that was bad to everyone else. I thought, wow, I really like the way this sounds. So contrary to everyone else's advice, including my own father's, on May the 2nd of 2008, I rolled over my 403B from my church into an annuity, a fixed indexed annuity. And I decided I did not want to play the going backwards game anymore. I wanted to protect my savings. And friends, when you come into my office to meet with me, or you may be one of my clients all over the country. I have clients in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Virginia, Minnesota, New Jersey, Michigan. That's right. All from this kid who knew nothing about financial planning back in 2008. And I am now a nationwide specialist who talks to people about their retirement planning and their estate planning all across the country. No matter where you're listening from, I will show you copies of my return from that first fixed index annuity that I got from firing my father. I love you, Dad, but you know what happened next. You ended up following suit. You followed me. You left Merrill Lynch. You took your money out of the Merrill Lynch 401ks, and you ended up purchasing 3 fixed indexed annuities because you got tired of losing your money. And I want everyone who's listening right now to realize you don't have to play the game. You don't have to lose your money and pay the person who helps lose your money while you're taking distributions, while you're paying taxes. That's called the quadruple whammy, and it will wipe you out in retirement. If you retire and the market's going backwards in a downward spiral while you take out distributions, while you pay a fee to your advisor, while you pay taxes to Uncle Sam on that tax-deferred account, your head will spin so fast. The only thing you're going to know is, hey, I'm here to apply for a job. Do I qualify? Because you will go back to work. I've heard this story over and over and over again from people who've called in over the past 16 years. Friends, we're going to show you how to never, ever, ever have that happen. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. You can call in and request a free financial consultation. I'll take a look at that account that keeps going backwards every time the market goes backwards, and I'll show you how to make that stop. Our number is 866-780-7233. We are safety retirement income planning experts. Friends, today on the show, we're talking about my father, Joe Pistole, who ironically did not know until he was in his 60s that his name was not the name he thought it was. So one of the funny stories that I'll share about my father is that he hated his given name. My father's given name, so he thought, was Hilliard Joe Pistole. So he was named after his grandfather, my great-grandfather. But he did not learn until he was in his 60s that there was no second I in his name. His name, correctly spelt, was Hillard, Hillard. But his entire life, they called him Hilliard. They called his grandfather Hilliard, and he spelt his name with the second I. Although on every document my father ever signed, he signed his name as H. Joe Pistole because he hated his first name. So since my dad was such a teaser, since my dad was so playful with everyone he ever knew, of course, what do you think I did to him all the time? My father was the middle child. I'm the middle child. I called him Hilliard all the time. And then later in life when he would say, my name's not Hilliard, it's Hillard, I would always put that I in there just to get him a little more, because I was relentlessly teased as a child growing up, which is what made me who I am today. So I'm certainly grateful for my father, for his sense of humor. Those of you that have been to our Christmas parties back when my father would come, you know he was the life of the party. He was an extrovert. Everyone loved him. He would be laughing and cutting up. I didn't get that gene. Whether you believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I'm an INFJ. The only reason I can do what I do is because, guess what? I'm recording this right now in my studio in my office. I'm not here with anyone. Thousands of people are listening to me all across the country, but I'm doing this from the privacy of my own office. I have a studio in my home. I don't do a lot of public events. I like the one-on-one, one-on-two, me with your family, but the big crowd, that's not me. But my father loved it. He loved it, and everybody loved him. So today, we're going to be sharing more and more about what my father went through. Now, if you missed the earlier parts of the show, you can go to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. Just look up Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole. The title of this show is going to be True Legacy Planning, and you're going to hear about my father in his career at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, his career at Merrill Lynch. He was a CRPC and a CLU. He had clients all over Arkansas and Missouri. He did group 401ks. He did individual plans. But about the first 63 years of his life, he was all in to the market, 100%, rode all the risks, all the ups and downs. And 01 and 08 nearly killed him financially because of what it did to his unprotected retirement accounts. He once had $1 million in his account. That ended up being down around $400,000. We then made a choice to pay off the remaining balance of his home, and he didn't have a lot of investable assets left. That's why my father continued to work from the market crash of when he was 63 years old in 08, all the way to age 77, almost 78 years old when he passed away 2 years ago. He worked to the day he died. Why? Well, number one, he loved what he did, but number two, because he had to. Now, friends, I want you to hear me on this. My father was a genius. Never made a B, was valedictorian, high school, college, head of the ROTC, a genius, passed every exam he ever took, knew the answer to every test he ever took, was a financial advisor for 50 years, and he worked until the day he died because he had to. Why did he have to? He made some bad financial decisions during his career. He chose to be all in with no protection. Too long, too late into life. He did not listen to the experts who now just their messages just resound all over the world on the internet, in their books, on their podcast, who say there's this thing called sequence of returns risk. You cannot be exposed completely to the market within 5 years before you retire and 5 years after. Now, if you've never heard of sequence of returns risk, go to my website, go to the podcast. I've written nationally published articles about it. I talk about it in my book, Bulletproof. I have interviews with Dr. Wade Fowle talking about it. I have interviews with Dr. David Blanchett talking about it. I have interviews with Dr. Michael Finke talking about it. I've talked to Tom Hegna about it. They all know what the sequence of returns risk is. It is the real deal, friends. And you simply must start paying attention to your risk corridor when you're within 5 years before you retire and the first 5 years after. And that's because you cannot control the ups and downs of the stock market. You don't know when it's going to go up, when it's going to go down. You don't know when we're going to start World War III. Last night before the vice presidential debates, there was breaking news about all the fighting that's going on in the Middle East, all the stuff that's happening with Israel. All this stuff could happen at any minute. Anyone can blow anyone up and push the button at any time, and World War III begins. We might be right on the verge of it. What's that going to do to the stock market? What does that do to your 401k? What does it do to interest rates? What does it do to the price of homes? What does it do to the price of cars? What does it do to the price of milk and bread and eggs and cheese and all these other things? Well, it affects all of them. But you know what? When you own the right type of financial products, when you've taken the appropriate amount of risk off the table, then you don't have to worry about what's going on. I'm not saying it's not important to you. I can assure you it is. I want the market to do extremely well. I have a really large 401k. I'm very open on this show. There are 7 figures in my 401k. You think I don't care what's happening in the stock market? I care. But because I'm under the age of 59 and a half, I don't really have any other choice. If I'm going to invest into something that's tax deferred, it's going to be in a 401k, and there isn't any level of protection inside that. That's all the risk I want. The rest of the stuff is protected. I currently have 7 annuities that I own. I'm about to own an 8th because I have a property that's about to close, and I'm going to dump that money into an 8th annuity. Why? Because going all the way back to May 2nd, 2008, when I purchased my first annuity, I've never lost one single penny in any of those accounts. I've had returns ranging anywhere from 0 all the way up to as high as 21.3%. Now, people say you can never make money in those accounts. 21.3%. I've had a lot of 15, 16, and 17s. And guess what? They never go backwards. None of them. I never lose any money in any of my annuities. So that's why I own them. They're a very vital part of my retirement income plan. And you need to know this. The experts say this regarding annuities, life insurance, things that are guaranteed. You need to make sure that your base level of income, the stuff that you need to pay your bills every single day, is coming from something that is 100% protected and guaranteed. Things like Social Security, for the most part. It's protected right now. It is, we have pensions and we have annuities. Those are the 3 things: Social Security, pensions, and annuities. And guess what? All 3 of those are annuities. Social Security is an annuity payment. Pensions are an annuity payment, and annuities are annuity payments. Your baseline of income has got to come from something that's absolutely, totally, and completely guaranteed. Then after that, swing for the fences. Invest in your 401k. Do crypto. Do whatever it is that you want. Gold, silver. Because remember, while people think gold and silver are safe investments, they're not. They go up and down with the market. That is a risky investment. It fluctuates with the market. You can do those things once you've secured your guaranteed lifetime income. And my father, who would have turned 80 years old today, would tell you if he was sitting right here. Listen to my story about what happened to me in 01 and 08 when I was 56 and 63. And then in 2011, I decided I'm not playing that game anymore. And I rolled over my Merrill Lynch 401k into 3 different fixed indexed annuities. I paid off my home. And with my income that was coming in and my Social Security that was coming in, which is a guaranteed annuity payment, I took the 3 annuities and my Social Security and my income, and that's how I lived the way I wanted to live the rest of my life. When he passed away, he passed those 3 annuities on to my mother, and she will continue to get those annuity payments for the rest of her life, no matter how long she lives. And friends, hear me on this. My mother very well may live 20 more years. Our number is 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. We're starting to wrap up the show here. We've got a little bit more time today, but I want to tell you a story about a good friend of mine. And this is shared with permission. He lets me share his name. A lot of you, if you live in the Ozarks, if you live in the Missouri region, you know Lynn Morris. Lynn is a good friend of mine. He's a former state representative. He served 4 terms in the Missouri House of Representatives. He's now the current Christian County presiding commissioner. He is also a client of ours. And he has a show, a television show that he has on the Acts channel. And I've been on as a guest many times. I sponsor his show. And I'll say this, he tells this story much better than I can, but it is amazing the way people get connected in today's world. How did Lynn Morris, who is a person who has lived in the Ozarks for years and years and years, how did he meet me? He met me because of something that happened when he was on vacation in Florida. As he tells the story, he was sitting at breakfast, he picked up a copy of USA Today, and he read the title to an article, Why You Need to Have Purpose in Your Daily Life Even When You Retire. That was published on December the 26th of 2018. And I was interviewed by certified financial planner Robert Powell for that article that appeared in USA Today. And Lynn Morris was sitting at breakfast on vacation in Florida, and he picked up the article and read it. And he read all these things, and he thought, wow, I wish I had a financial planner like that where I live. And he had no clue that I live where he lives and that I'm the one that was interviewed for the article he had in his hand at the time. Now, scroll forward a few weeks. He comes back home, and he's sitting at breakfast somewhere, and there was a group of men talking, and they kept talking about Brad Pistole. Brad Pistole. And he thought, Brad Pistole, where have I heard that name? And he thought, that's that guy that was in that USA Today article I read a couple of weeks ago when I was in Florida. So he walks over to the table and he starts talking to them. And he's like, hey, this Brad Pistole guy, I read some article about him. Do you guys know him? And they're like, well, yeah, he lives right here in Ozark, Missouri. And it blew his mind. You just have to have Lynn tell you the story. But here's the thing. That was back before the days of podcasts. That's back when the only way you would ever hear anything about Safe Money Radio or Brad Pistole was if you happened to turn on the radio at the right time on the right station on the right day. Now, I'm on 5 times a week. I'm on Saturdays and Sundays on 2 different channels, but my podcast is on all the time, 24/7. Go to YouTube. Go to Spotify, go to Apple, just look up Safe Money Radio with Brad Pistole. You can watch all the interviews we've had with the retirement planning experts from all over the country. But that wasn't the case back when Lynn first read this article. And so he thought, I've got to go meet this guy. Now, those of you that know Lynn know he's been very, very successful. He's not your average client. He doesn't have $50 saved. He has done well for himself. And he came in and he wanted to know, because of where he was in his life at that time, his risk corridor was changing. He had been through market crashes. He had been through 01 and 08. And he wanted to know about these products that no one ever talked to him about. How do I protect my money, guarantee my future retirement income, and how do I pass on all these things to my family? Because this is very, very important to me. So make a long story short, he read the article. He came in and met with me, thankfully, because people were talking about me at a restaurant where he heard my name. And he wanted to come in and talk about the things that I talked about in this article, about why you need to have purpose in your daily life even when you retire. And that's how we're going to end the show today. I'm going to share part of that article with you from my best-selling book at the end. But here's the thing. We were able to take Lynn's current financial plan, show him where the potholes were that he was about to hit, the landmines, show him how to move the appropriate amount of things out of risk into safety, show him how to deal with required minimum distributions, teach him how to do qualified charitable distributions, all these things that are so difficult and confusing, right? You have RMDs, you have QCDs, all these different acronyms. Friends, you know how confusing it is? There are now 4 different rules for RMDs, known as required minimum distributions, which Lynn is now taking. He's above the RMD age. There was the 70 and a half rule. There was the 72 rule. There was the age 73 rule. And now there's an age 75 rule. So when someone says, well, when do I have to take the required minimum distribution? I say, well, there's 4 answers for that. It depends on when you were born. That's why you need to be talking to someone who is a retirement income certified professional, who is also someone who's worked with Ed Slott's Master Elite IRA Advisor Group for the past 15 years. We know this stuff inside and out. And I can't tell you how many people I talk to every single day. They're retired, they're above the RMD age, they give to their churches and their charities, and they've never even heard of a QCD. Their financial firm, professionals, group, quote, quote, professionals, have never told them what a qualified charitable distribution is. And friends, if you're hearing this for the first time right now and you've never heard of a QCD and you're above the age of 70 and a half, if you give to churches and charities, you absolutely need to be using QCDs. And we will show you how to do it because it will save you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes. That is what has made us specialists that people seek after all across the country. We will show you how to protect your money, how to keep it safe, how to have it never go backwards, never be lost to fees, and never be lost to unnecessary taxes. America's IRA expert Ed Slott says this: the number one thing that will separate you from the retirement of your dreams is taxes. Now, my father was an advisor for 52 years. All of his money was in tax-deferred accounts. So not only was he doing the triple and quadruple whammy, he was taking distributions from an account while it was going backwards, while he paid himself a fee, he was his own advisor, while paying taxes on the account. No one ever talked to him about tax planning as a financial advisor. All he knew was, well, it's all about the rate of return. How much money can I make the person? As long as I make more than the next guy, then they're never going to fire me. I'll always be their advisor. That's not necessarily the case, because anyone who's that type of financial professional is only focusing on the first half of the game. They're focusing on how to build the account. Hopefully, it is going to go backwards also if they don't use protection products. But they're only talking to you about building it. They're not talking to you about how to take it back out in the most tax-efficient way. You've got to protect yourself from unnecessary taxes and fees. And that's what we do, friends. That's why my father, not until his late 60s, converted some of his IRAs that were held in annuities. He converted them to Roth IRAs, paid the tax, got rid of it, and then lived tax-free off that money, which my mother now lives tax-free. Why did he make that sacrifice? Why did he do that legacy planning? Because he learned from his younger son. He learned from a son who didn't have half the experiences he did, but I met the right people like Ed Slott and Tom Hegna and Dr. Wade Fowle, who said, you better pay those taxes now. You better get rid of them now. So going all the way back to May 2nd, 2008, when I purchased that first annuity, which if you heard the first part of the show, know it came from a 403B at the church where I worked. The very first thing I did one day after moving it from risk into safety was I converted that to a Roth. When you roll over a 403B, it becomes an IRA. I converted the IRA to a Roth. I paid the taxes back in 2008. Now, let me ask you a blatantly obvious question. I'll show you my returns, friends. I converted that money when there was $37,000 in it back in 2008. I didn't have a lot of money to pay the taxes on that $37,000 conversion, but I paid it. Now that account is worth almost $200,000, just that one account. It's now in a Roth. I owe no tax on the distribution. Did I make a good decision back in 2008? Absolutely I did. You want to know how many Roth conversions I've done since then? A lot of them. And I've helped literally hundreds of people convert from traditional to Roths because I am future thinking. It's not just about today. It's not about what you make. It's what you keep after taxes that counts. If all your money is saved in tax-deferred accounts, 401ks, IRAs, TSPs, 403Bs, then you're going to have a tax problem in the future. You're not only going to have a tax problem from the federal and state standpoint, your Social Security taxation is going to be more than you want. Your IRMA taxation is going to be more than you want. The surcharge on your Medicare, that's income-related monthly adjustment amounts. And I can almost guarantee you 90% of you listening right now are like, hey, Brad, slow down for a minute. Take a deep breath. My advisor never talks to me about any of this stuff. That's right. They'll tell you to go talk to your CPA. And that's why people like Ed Slott, my good friend, will say, make sure you protect yourself from bad advice. One of his most recent PBS shows is freedom from these 4 pillars. Taxes is one of them. Risk is one of them. Bad advice is another one. Make sure you're working with a retirement income certified professional who knows it's not just about what you make, but it's about what you keep that counts. If you want our free information, call us anytime at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233. Friends, we thank you so much for joining us on the show today. You know, I've been talking about my father, Joe Pistole, who was a advisor for 50 plus years. He worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield. He worked for Merrill Lynch. He worked for us here at Trinity Insurance and Financial Services. He was the advisor who said, be all in, push all your chips to the middle of the table and just ride the wave of the stock market. And then 2001 and 2008 happened. It ate his lunch. It wiped him out. It cut his 401k in half. And a few years later, he retired from Merrill Lynch. He came to work for me. He started protecting his own 401k by moving it into different annuities, fixed indexed annuities with income riders that not only paid him the rest of his life on this earth, but now pays my mother every single day for the rest of her life on this earth. But he did other things. He secured his life insurance to do legacy planning. He secured all the types of things that made sense, that made things better for his family. And he started teaching people how to do things differently than he did the first 65 years of his life because he did not take care of risk management. But I will tell you, there is something that is far more important than all that, and I am going to end the show with it today. My father taught me about the things that matter the most in this world. You know, he who dies with the most toys still dies. I'm a very, very blessed individual. You've heard me say for years, I own multiple properties. I own multiple homes. I own multiple farms. I have all types of investments, land, 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, you name it. I own eight different annuities. But here's the thing. None of any of that matters. What matters is what I leave to those around me, my family, my friends, those of you who are listening right now, things that are going to matter as this life continues. So I want to read part to you from my book, Bulletproof, The Safe and Secure Retirement Income Plan, because these are the kind of things my father left in me. And I want you to know this first and foremost. Legacy planning is not what you leave to someone. It's what you leave in them that counts. Legacy planning that lasts forever, as we end today's show. A truly stress-free retirement plan takes place when you never have to worry about running out of money before you run out of life. You will sleep well at night when you know your income will not only last the rest of your life and your spouse's life, but also for the lives of everyone you plan to leave a legacy. That is true peace. But I like to take it a step further than that. I recently read something that I've since passed on to many clients and friends. It found its way onto the pages of this book. The article, Christian Leaders Transforming the World of Wealth Management, a look into faith-fueled finance, included a section about a living legacy. Daryl Lyons, co-founder and CEO of Pax Financial Group, said, "Inheritance is what you leave to someone, but legacy is what you leave in someone. Living a legacy is much more rewarding and much more fun than just accumulating money to leave behind." His words are beautifully powerful and reminded me of a couple of interviews I did back in 2018 and 19 with Robert Powell, CFP and writer for USA Today, The Street, Retirement Daily, and Market Watch. Now, friends, this is what we were talking about earlier in the show. Various parts of my interview with Robert ended up in USA Today in the article, Why You Need to Have Purpose in Your Daily Life Even When You Retire, and in the Retirement Daily article, What New Opportunities Are You Retiring To? Robert interviewed several different financial advisors from across the country and pieced together their thoughts on avoiding a letdown after retirement. And he says this: it's not about retiring from work, it's about retiring to new opportunities. While Robert and I talked, I shared with him some of the research I'd done regarding the high percentage of people who return to work within less than a year of retiring. There are a lot of reasons why this happens, but one of the main reasons is that a person's career often provides a great sense of self-worth for them. If you do not have a plan when you retire, you will not retire to something, and you will more than likely feel like there is no reason for you to get up each and every day. In fact, one of the most important things you can do once you retire is to actively participate in the lives of your children and your grandchildren. Do the things you always wished you could do but never could because you were working. Volunteer to coach a grandchild's sports team. Volunteer at church or a civic organization. Use your talents to volunteer for a worthy cause and continue to make a difference in the lives of the people you are serving. The key is to retire to something rather than from something. Now, friends, you've heard me talk about this for years and years, and I just want to end by saying this. So whatever you do, take the vacation that you've always wanted to take and bring your grandchildren along. Go on a mission trip and teach your grandchildren what life is about. Coach a basketball team and watch young lives change because you took the time to help them. Find your passion. Use your talents. Give your time. Serve other people. Teach a child to fish or to hunt. Take them camping. Build fires. Stare at the stars. And tell stories. Always tell stories. You will find that true riches will pour into your life when you give back to those around you. Leaving a true legacy is more about how you live and how you give. It's not about what you leave to someone. It's what you leave in them that matters the most. Give the best gift you could ever give them. Give them your time. They will never be the same, and you will live the retirement of your dreams. The memories you make will lead you to the stories that they will share with their children and their grandchildren for the decades to come. That is legacy planning that truly lasts forever. Friends, I'm so grateful for my 15 years on this show, leading you and guiding you and giving you advice. I'm so grateful for where it all comes from. I give honor and glory to God, and I thank you for my father, Joe Pistole, who lived 77 years on this earth, who taught me all these things that I've shared with you today. Thank you, Dad. I love you. Friends, if I can ever help, call me at 866-780-7233. There's always someone standing by to take your call. Well, I'm about out of time, and I would like to thank you for listening to Safe Money Radio. If you're serious about your financial future, give me a call, and together we'll get your retirement savings on the fast track to accumulation while reducing exposure to market losses. Thanks for listening, and until next time at the same time, I'm Brad Pistole, reminding you to stay safe so you can step into a secure future.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
You've been listening to Safe Money Radio with your host, Brad Pistole. Find out how to contractually guarantee that your hard-earned money is safe while avoiding market loss so you can have the retirement that you deserve. Call Brad Pistole now for your complimentary Safe Money book and Safe Money information kit at 866-780-SAFE. That's 866-780-7233.
Safe Money Radio, your money safe and sound.
The preceding information does not represent tax, legal, or investment advice. Surrender charges apply to base contracts. Optional lifetime income benefit riders are used to calculate lifetime payments only and are not available for cash surrender or in a death benefit unless specified in the annuity contract. Fees may apply. Guarantees are based on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the insurance company. No information presented today should be acted upon without meeting with a qualified and licensed professional. Obviously, by calling us now, you are just taking the first step towards protecting your retirement. It's important that you read all insurance contract disclosures carefully before making a purchase decision. Rates and returns mentioned on this program are subject to change without notice.